Welcome to this tutorial on setting up role-based authentication control in Svelte 5. In this video we'll be using SvelteKit, Lucia for authentication, Drizzle ORM for database management and a Postgres database. Let's dive in. Svelte 5 introduced a powerful new CLI tool that simplifies project setup. Here I'm using the CLI to create the new SvelteKit project. You can see the settings I've chosen, such as TypeScript support, Tailwind CSS, the Drizzle ORM and Lucia for authentication. I've also selected a few other options which we'll get into in later videos. Next we'll set up our Postgres database in DigitalOcean. This will serve as the foundation for managing our user roles and permissions. We'll start by navigating to the database interface on DigitalOcean. First of all, we can select the region that the data center will run in. We then choose the database engine. We'll be using Postgres. We don't need to change any of the settings on the basic configuration. We make sure it's in the correct project, and we can then create the database cluster. After a few minutes of configuration, we can then see all of the connection details that will be needed to connect to the database. These will be useful in the next steps. We also need to take the connection string from the connection parameters area and put that into our database environment in VS Code. With our database created, let's connect to it using pgadmin4. pgadmin is a popular tool for managing PostgreSQL databases. To get started, we'll right-click on the server, register a new server, and give it a name. We can then use the connection information from the DigitalOcean interface to connect to our database. Once connected, we can see the database show up in the Object Explorer, and then if we go through the tree, we'll be able to see the tables in the database. Currently there are no tables, but that's to be expected as we haven't passed the schema to the database yet. Now let's upload our initial database schema that was created using the Lucia demo, Drizzle ORM. This will create the necessary tables for user authentication and the base for our application's role-based authentication control. We'll start by opening a new terminal. Do cd frontend to move to the frontend directory or whatever you called your application. We'll then use the npm run db push, which will push the database schema to the database. We'll execute all the statements. Changes have been applied. We can then head over to the pgadmin interface. If we right click on the tables, we can refresh them, and you should be able to see that both tables have now been appended to the database. Back in VS Code, we can now run npm run dev. That'll run our dev server. And if we open up the application, we'll be able to see the routes. In the URL bar, we'll have to add demo after the localhost address. We can then select Lucia. We'll start by registering two users, a demo user and a demo admin. We'll then be able to use these accounts in the database to confirm that the application is correctly routing the admin to the admin page, and the user should not be able to access the admin page. Over in pgadmin, if we select the user table and view the data, we should be able to see both users are now set up correctly. To implement the role-based authentication control, we need to update the database schema. Let me show you how to use dbdiagram to visualize the current and new schema to streamline the process. For those who've never used it, dbdiagram is a visualization tool for database schemas. As dbdiagram can't directly take our schema into its input, I've created a simple application that will convert our schema to the application requirements for dbdiagram. We can now visualize what the original schema looks like from the Lucia demo. Back in VS Code, we can now see that I've updated the database schema, which can be found in the source lib server db route. I've added the role, permission, user role and role permission tables to the database. We can now go back to DB diagram to visualize these. And as I was saying earlier, we can't put that directly into the DB diagram interface. We have to convert the schema to get the new output. From here, I've added a copy button to be able to copy the schema directly over. And if we place that into the input box and update it, we can now see what the new schema profile looks like as we implement role-based access control. Now that we've got our updated schema, let's push it to the database. We'll create a new terminal. Again, select the front-end directory, and then use the Drizzle Kit CLI to be able to update the database. We'll use the push command. And yes, we want to execute all statements. Now we can head back over to the PG admin interface, and if we refresh the tables, we can see all the tables are now there. With the updated schema now in place, let's create some initial roles and permissions so that we can test the role-based access control functionality. To be able to test the role-based access control, we'll first need to put some data into the tables. I've created this SQL script to be able to add this data to the tables. However, we can't add the data to the tables just yet. Unfortunately, when creating the database tables from the schema, it doesn't seem to update the ID columns to have the generator's identity function. To add this functionality, we'll have to use a second script first. Now when we go back to the original script, we can run it successfully. If we then head over to the roles table, we can look at the data inside that table and see that the two new roles have been created. Now that the roles and permissions are correctly set up, let's implement the server-side route protection in SvelteKit. In the routes directory, I've created an admin folder and added a page.svelte and page.server.ts. In the page.server.ts, we've got an isUserAdmin function, which checks to see if the user has the role admin. And we have the page server load, which runs the function to check if the user ID is available and if the user is an admin, and then returns all of the information to the page. In the page.svelte, we've set up a simple page that shows the admin all of the user data. If the user length is greater than 0, we've found the data in the database, otherwise it will show no users found. If the users are found, it'll iterate over all of the users and show their roles. Once this has been saved, we can now head back over to the server. And if we try to open up the admin route, we can see that it directs back to the main page. If we go to Lucia to log in as the admin, we can see that we are logged in. And then if we try to access the admin route, we can see all the users and their roles. If we now head back to Lucia and log out, and log back in as the demo user, when we try to access the admin page, we get rerouted back to the home page. And that brings us to the end of the tutorial. We've successfully implemented a role-based access control system in Svelte 5 using Lucia, Auth and Drizzle ORM with Postgres SQL database. Check out the link in the description below that'll get you $200 of DigitalOcean credits for the next 60 days, and it'll also gain me $25 of credits if you continue to use their services. And the blog post with all additional scripts and the application which was used in this video is available too. Don't forget to subscribe for more content like this and comment below what you'd like to see next.